In 1870, John D. Rockefeller controlled less than 4% of America's oil refineries. By 1880, he controlled 90%. Not through better oil, not through harder work, not even through superior technology, through something far more disturbing and far more replicable. Here is what most people get wrong about Rockefeller. They imagine a brilliant wildcatter, a risk-taker, a man who found oil faster than anyone else and got paid for it. That is not what happened. Rockefeller barely touched the oil. He didn't drill it. He didn't discover it. He didn't even particularly care about it. What he cared about was the pipe it traveled through, the barrel it sat in, the railroad car that moved it, the refinery that processed it, and most importantly, the price that someone else had to pay him to access all of those things. He didn't win by being the best at oil. He won by making himself impossible to go around. Let's go back to 1860s Pennsylvania. Oil has just been discovered. It's chaos. Hundreds of small operators, drilling, refining, selling. Prices swing wildly. One week oil is $4 a barrel. The next week it's 10 cents. The whole industry is unstable, dangerous, and littered with bankruptcies. Most people looked at that chaos and saw risk. Rockefeller looked at it and saw an opportunity for control. He starts in refining, not drilling. Refining, the part where raw crude gets turned into usable kerosene. He builds efficient refineries in Cleveland. He drives costs down hard, harder than his competitors, not because he loves efficiency, but because he understands something they don't yet. Margins are a weapon. If you can operate cheaper than your competitors, you can undercut their prices until they break, and then you can buy them cheaply. This is where it gets interesting. In 1872, Rockefeller enters into a secret arrangement with the railroads. It's called the South Improvement Company. The deal is elegant in its cruelty. Rockefeller agrees to ship enormous volumes of oil on certain railroads. In exchange, the railroads give Standard Oil, his company, rebates, discounts on shipping rates, sometimes as high as 50%. But here's the part that still sounds almost illegal, because it was. The railroads also agree to charge Rockefeller's competitors the full rate, and then secretly pay a portion of what those competitors paid directly back to Standard Oil. Let that sink in for a moment. Every time a rival refiner shipped oil, they were essentially paying a tax, and that tax went to Rockefeller. His competitors weren't just losing to him, they were funding him. When word got out, there was public outrage. The South Improvement Company was dissolved, but Rockefeller didn't care. He had already used the leverage to terrify dozens of refiners into selling out. He called it persuasion. Historians are less charitable. By 1899, Standard Oil controlled pipelines, refineries, and shipping arrangements across the country. If you produced oil in Pennsylvania and wanted to get it to market, you had almost no choice but to go through him, and Rockefeller could set the terms. This is the mechanism that most textbooks skip over. The popular story is that Standard Oil won through scale and efficiency, that Rockefeller was simply better at the game, and there is some truth there. He was obsessive about cost control. He recycled barrel drippings. He built his own barrel factories to cut supplier costs. He was meticulous in ways that would seem excessive today. But efficiency alone does not explain how one man came to control 90% of an entire industry in a country of 60 million people. What explains it is choke points. Rockefeller systematically identified every node in the supply chain where leverage was possible. The rail lines, the pipelines, the refineries, the storage tanks. He didn't need to own the oil. He needed to own the infrastructure that the oil couldn't move without. It's the same logic a toll road operator uses. You don't need to build the car. You just need to own the only bridge. By 1880, Standard Oil's profits were roughly $70 million a year in an era when a skilled worker earned $500 annually. Rockefeller's personal wealth was accumulating at a rate that had no real precedent in American history. And yet, the oil itself was getting cheaper. Kerosene prices for ordinary consumers fell dramatically through this period. Rockefeller made the argument, and still makes the argument through his admirers today, that he brought order and efficiency to a chaotic market, that consumers benefited. And they did. on the surface. But beneath the surface, hundreds of independent operators had been eliminated, not beaten fairly, squeezed out through pricing arrangements, transportation manipulation, and what a later Supreme Court would simply call unreasonable restraint of trade. In 1911, the